Welcome to another episode of Live from the Blue Seats. I'm your host, Rob, joined this week by Dave, and we have a pretty action-packed show for you this week with the NHL Draft looming as you listen to this on Friday morning. It is this evening. That's awesome. We don't know if the Rangers will be picking, because the other bit of news that happened just before we picked up our microphones and went to record this is that the Rangers are seemingly hot on the trail of completing a Masn McTavish trade. As we record, that is not done yet, although it's very possible, Dave, that during this recording, the trade will get completed, and that would be pretty exciting. So with all that said, how are you?
I'm just going to say I told you all. I knew this was going to... I didn't know for a fact it was going to happen, but it made too much sense for the Rangers not to go after Masn McTavish. And yeah, I am very happy, cost dependent, obviously, that the Rangers are targeting a potential top line center. Third overall pick in 2021, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
This is the type of deal that, again, cost dependent. We don't know what the cost is. This is the type of deal that Drury should be making. Young talent that may be on the upswing, may need a change of scenery. Again, this could be their version of a Mika Zibanejad trade. So, cautiously optimistic. I know Drury's the guy running the show. But that aside, I can't imagine Drury offering the 5th overall pick for Masn McTavish, who's essentially a 40, 50-point center with potential. I can't see him doing that. So, with the news that also Trocheck is not involved, this screams Braden Schneider, right?
I would think so. So let's back it up and give everybody the context that we do have.
Wait, we do context? We do context?
We try to do context. We try to be objective, but also have fun with it. You're coming here for a reason, folks. Context, objective, opinions, although subjective in a reasonable way. Let's put it that way. Bad food takes, the odd, Marvel pop culture reference. I could go on, but maybe we were recording this at 9:15 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. A couple of hours ago, reports started bubbling to the surface. First, Frank Saravalli, Emily Kaplan, Vince Mercogliano. So at this point, there's enough information out there to believe that the smoke around this trade is very, very real. In some way, shape, or form, the Rangers and Ducks are talking Masn McTavish. I don't take these reports as this being imminent, but like I said, it's very possible if we record for an hour that before this podcast is done, this trade becomes official. That said, we don't know what the terms of the trade would be, but one of the bits that Vince Mercogliano did report is that Vincent Trocheck is not involved. So to
he
me,
also said that the 5th overall, he'd be stunned if the 5th overall is included in that.
Right.
He added that in a reply to that.
Okay. So that is interesting. Now, I will say right off the top that in a vacuum, yes, involving the 5th overall pick in this trade would seem reckless, desperate, and would just not feel like the right level of compensation for this player who, let's not forget, was healthy scratched by the Ducks in both late important regular season games as well as a couple of playoff games. That said, I think you'd have to take a look at the offseason in totality before you could really make that judgment, right? Because maybe the Rangers use 26th overall and another asset or two to move back into the top 10 of this draft. I don't know who they could trade with. We can get into some of those scenarios a little bit later, but let's, if it is the 5th overall, let's at least see how the rest of the offseason shakes out. That said, comforting to know that Vince, at least has it on from his sources that that pick isn't involved. Yeah. I mean, look, this feels like the 26th overall Braden Schneider, who is a solid NHL defenseman, a right-handed defenseman, which Anaheim desperately needs. He will be cheaper than Jacob Trouba. He will be cheaper than a lot of the other, unrestricted free agent possibilities out there for Anaheim. It makes a lot of sense. It makes about as much sense as the some of the stuff we discussed earlier that never came to fruition with the San Jose Sharks because they did business with other teams, and Chris Drury, I guess, did not want to get into the William Eklund side of things. But point being, if this is a trade centered around the 26th overall pick, Braden Schneider, and one or two other complementary pieces, I think it's hard not to see it as a good piece of business by Chris Drury. And I think we, would, at least in this very limited instance, give him credit for making the right type of move for this team at this juncture.
So the other bit that not just came out, but has been out for a bit, but we haven't talked about yet, is the other team involved per Scott Wheeler is Ottawa, who has Jordan Spence on the block. So this is again why we point towards Schneider on this, because it's basically Schneider versus Spence and then the other pieces. So I don't know what other picks Ottawa has. Actually, I don't know why I said that. I can look it up.
Yeah, let's look it up.
Yeah, I just need to find them on. Okay, why am I doing it that way? Okay. Ottawa they have the 32nd overall
and 25
and the 20. Okay, good. And the 25th overall.
Yeah, in a trade from Tampa Bay.
Yes. So the Rangers have 26 and 5. Ottawa has 25 and 32. That's interesting because it's literally that one. If it's one draft slot that makes him go to Ottawa, I'm going to be furious.
That would be tough. I mean, look, this is the other thing that when this news started breaking, I was excited, but definitely not as excited as a lot of other people because nothing is done yet. And I have been conditioned to believe that, especially in the last, 18 months of the Chris Drury era, there has been an awful lot of information that has gotten out, which is a separate issue that I don't want to get into on this podcast. But, that the Rangers were in on certain guys. They were interested in certain guys. Obviously, Brady Tkachuk it comes top of mind, but I think I read something earlier that they were interested in William Eklund, and of course, they're interested in Jason Robertson, and they were going hard after Bowen Byram. And they're, it's kind of reminding me of the Jets in a way. The Jets are very famous for being close to acquiring impact players, but we tried, but we couldn't get them. And that is usually the mark of a poorly run, bad sports franchise. And the Rangers have very much been that when it comes to these types of discussions over the last 18 months. So I am reserving my excitement. I am hopeful that this gets done. And then, like you said, Dave, we will evaluate it on the merits and the compensation. But, to me, at least this feels like, look, I think the fact that they were in on Byram and that it's possible that they only lost out on Byram because Buffalo got the 4th pick from Chicago instead of the 5th pick from the Rangers. Is a little scary, right?
That is the only reason why, by the way. That
right, and that's kind of scary.
Reason why.
Right. So that you're looking at the process over results, and you're saying, well, that doesn't seem like great process. Here, this at least seems like good process because of the type of player McTavish is, and in theory, yes, you are buying somewhat low on a guy who had a scoring decrease from 2 years ago to this year. He went from, I believe it was 52
I need to cut
points
you off.
Yep.
I need to cut you off. Sorry.
Yep.
Pierre LeBrun, it's the Blues and the Rangers, so Ottawa's not in it.
Okay. All right. Well, so let's see what do the Blues have to offer?
That is a very good question. Sorry to cut you off mid-sentence.
Are they putting Robert Thomas? Would they put Robert Thomas in this deal? I can't
imagine that, but I could, given it's Anaheim and they want a defensively sound center. I wonder if Pius Suter only has a year left. They need right-handed defensemen. Parayko was apparently taken off the market. Who the hell do they have to offer? There's Connor McMichael. They just got Connor McMichael, and he's not that good. So St. Louis has 4 first-round picks.
Right. In theory, they could offer 2 first rounders here. I mean, so
Yeah,
could the
but why
Rangers,
would
but
but why would Anaheim do first rounders when they're looking to continue their playoff runs? What the
right.
hell do they have to there's the Rangers actually have I can't believe these words coming out of my mouth. The Rangers have more to offer than St. Louis.
Yeah. Like I said, unless Robert Thomas is in this deal, I guess that's
Yeah.
possible. He'd be the best player.
Oh, easily.
And
And the Rangers can't outbid them if Robert Thomas is in the deal.
right, exactly. So I guess maybe we can rest easy if they lose this trade and it's Robert Thomas. Yeah, to your point, Dave, St. Louis has 11th overall, 15, 16, and 29. I mean, they're not making all those picks.
I would
So
assume 15 and 29 would go, and then if Verbeek is just going for value, if it's 15 and 29, then you package those for something else that you actually want.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, look, the amount of trading within the first round is pretty unprecedented this year. I mean, obviously, we haven't really talked since all of the flurry of moves that have happened with, like obviously with Brady Kachuk and with Bowen Byram and obviously, it's just been wild. It's been a wild few days. It was what was it, Tuesday this past week where it essentially felt like the trade deadline all over again, where there was like basically a new deal happening every 5 minutes.
Uh-huh. That was insane. Tuesday was absolutely insane.
Yeah,
And it
it was
looks
it
like
was
we're going to
it
get
was awesome.
more of it leading into tonight. Well, tonight, Thursday night, as we're recording, and tomorrow, Friday.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, usually when you get this volume of information coming from the quote unquote insiders, the trade is close, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
unless somebody walks away from the table, and that somebody would have to be Anaheim here, um, then the deal's probably going to happen pretty soon. So, look, let's again, what I was saying about McTavish, and no problem that you cut me off at all, Dave. Look, this is somewhat of a buy low in the sense that he went from 52 points in 76 games 2 seasons ago to 41 points in 75 games this season. And it just seems like his ice time dropped by a minute and a half. It does seem like he is just not a fit for what Joel Quenneville wants to do in Anaheim and what Anaheim wants to build moving forward. Like you said, they're a playoff team. They won a round. They probably feel as though they can make another step. And they feel McTavish is a piece that they can use to better their cause as a playoff team. So it does remind me so much of what Mika Zibanejad was to the Ottawa Senators when they traded him to the Rangers, and how they felt like they were progressing towards being a potential contender. They wanted somebody with more experience and sort of playoff bona fides, and they traded for Derek Brassard, and the Rangers benefited from that because, look, say what you want about Mika Zibanejad, and maybe this is more of a reflection of the history of the Ranger franchise, but he is one of the best Rangers ever. He's certainly in the top 10 in terms of Rangers forwards of all time. He's climbing up the leaderboard in terms of goals and points. He's going to pass Chris Kreider for power play goals pretty soon. He is a kind of a flag bearing Ranger now. I'm not, I don't want to have any discussions about number retirement or anything like that, but the guy has been a great Ranger. So,
He
and the
wants to
Rangers
be
traded,
here.
well, that too, right? I mean, we could get into his future with the team, and how he figures into the next few seasons as the Rangers try to rebuild this thing. But I'm just saying, from the standpoint of, they made that trade for a player that was a high, upside, high draft pick, but hadn't really put it all together yet. And that is exactly what Masn McTavish is right now.
I saw Tyler just put something in the group chat on Blue Sky. Unrelated to any of this, Jason Robertson turned down a multi-year offer, $15 million a year from Seattle.
Wow.
Which
Okay.
is interesting because that means Dallas is looking to move Robertson. So
Yeah.
unrelated to anything Masn McTavish related.
Well, interesting you
But
say that though, right? Because like, does Anaheim get to a point where they can get into a Robertson bidding war if they want to take two of St. Louis's picks and then turn that into part of their offer for Robertson? Like just spitballing. Hello?
okay, now I hear you.
Oh, sorry about that.
Now, what happened?
No, I was just saying that, does it make sense with Robertson potentially being out there? Does Anaheim want to accrue first round draft picks and take a Blues offer that might be centered on 2 or even 3 first round picks?
That's
And then
doable.
use those picks to go get Robertson.
My question is, why would Dallas do that when they're also in their contention window?
Yeah.
If anything, they would be looking to move other assets off so they can keep Robertson, unless there was some kind of massive, massive trade involved, probably involving Shane Wright, mind you,
Hmm.
from Seattle. I'm trying to understand. Like, this is the piece that is confusing to me, at least involving McTavish and St. Louis, is why would Anaheim, a playoff team that is looking to take that next step in a very weak division, LA's only getting worse, Edmonton's only getting worse. Why would they not look to take a giant leap forward by taking a right-handed defenseman to fill out their roster that they
Right. No,
desperately
it's true.
need? And why would they take the picks? I understand flipping them for Robertson, but then Dallas doesn't make sense taking that unless they're flipping the picks for, I don't know. That's the piece that is confusing to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, I think the hope here is that Schneider, another, young player or another player, NHL, almost NHL ready. I saw, Noah Laba's name mentioned. That would be tough to do because I think a lot of Laba became a fan favorite right away and had a solid rookie year. But certainly Schneider seems to be like the type of guy that just makes too much sense for Anaheim. I mean, look, they had Jacob Trouba. Are they fully buying into the baby Trouba, thing with Schneider and, similar style player? They obviously were able to tolerate, some of Trouba's deficiencies as a player. And to be fair, he did improve slightly enough in Anaheim to be at least, less of a outward negative on the ice. I mean, he's still not, was not playing up to the worth of an $8 million contract, but he was good enough to be on a team that went to the second round of the playoffs, right? And play major minutes. So, you know, uh, that said, he had more of a track record with Winnipeg and the Rangers than Schneider does. And, look, Schneider was on a bad team, mind you, the worst Rangers skater by expected goals, right? He was in the low 40s in terms of
Yep.
5-on-5 expected goals. And no matter what you think about analytics, that is, not exactly a sophisticated stat anymore. Everybody's looking at those types of metrics. So Anaheim knows that. So that could be a hurdle here. They would just, and we might be, assuming that NHL GMs see the size and the handedness and just want to go for it. And maybe that is the case, but I think it's possible that Schneider, you know, is viewed as the flawed player that we believe he is around the league.
I am so torn on Schneider and what his actual value is. Because, like you said, he has not had good metrics at all, but the
No.
Rangers are bad. And funny enough, he actually looked better when he was playing up with Keandre Miller. But he looked horrible playing up with Vlad Gavrikov. So I have no read on Schneider. I have no read on any of his value. So This is why I'm so confused with how this is going to turn out if it goes down. As long as Molly Walker also reported that Trocheck's not in it and Lafreniere's not in it.
Right. And well, why
So
would
that's good.
Lafreniere? That wouldn't make any sense. Yeah, I can't. They're not trading Lafreniere. I think everybody
No,
just
they're
needs to
not.
wrap their heads around the fact that like he's looked at as a building block. He's 24 years old. He's a point per game player over the last 30 games of the year. I think let's just all be comfortable with the fact that Lafreniere will be back next year, and I think that's a good thing.
Yes, I think Laf is finally turning the corner now that he's the guy that they look at for offense instead of Panarin. I don't think it's coincidence that Panarin left and all of a sudden Laf is turning heads. So that's good. And the other good thing here is between McTavish, not so much Kachuk because that's been known for a while, and Bowen Byram, Drury is targeting young, skilled players.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that he's doing that. I heard, or we all saw that the 5th overall was in play for Byram, and I think that's wildly absurd unless there was more coming back with the 5th, but there wasn't because they got the 4th from Chicago. So while my instinct is to say there's no way he would give up the 5th overall pick for McTavish, a 40, 50-point player. If it's the 5th overall and Schneider, I'm going to lose it. If it's
no, yeah,
it has to be, and if it has to be Schneider and the 27th, or Schneider and Berard, or some shit like that. Or if it's the 5th overall, you better be getting Zellweger or Minchikov back as well. Plus, you can't even move back, you can't even take a late first rounder because Anaheim doesn't have any first rounders. Maybe a 27 first rounder, but you got to get something else. If you're giving up the 5th, it can't just be for McTavish. You need more.
Yeah, I agree with that. And even though I have I have more of a fuck them picks attitude than I think a lot of people. You can't be reckless with that strategy. You have to be very targeted with it. And I think that, a guy like McTavish alone is probably not worth that. Now, look, he's currently a 40 to 50 point player, but I think I will say if you're willing to part with the 5th overall pick, that tells me two things. You don't love this draft class and you don't love your draft slot, and you're betting on upside. McTavish is going to be a 70 to 80 point guy at some point. He is only 23. So that is the other, that's the other factor there.
Again, and this is where the past history with Drury is coming into play, because I don't know if we trust Drury. And now, like, we're bringing out the pessimistic side of it for me. I have a lot of trouble with what Drury's plans are, because, again, he said he wants to get tougher and nastier. McTavish does that, at least. He doesn't have the speed that people want. So, if there's anything, tying this to the draft, and I'm kind of getting lost on my words here, probably still recovering from the migraine I had before. But if they're targeting McTavish, my guess is they're not in on Beagle Bjork, which I think is a mistake. I think if he's there at 5, you have to take him no matter what. Which means they're probably drafting Schmidt for at 5th overall. I don't think they're going to take Carols anymore.
Yep.
So, again, this goes back to that speed thing. And I know I have been very big on playing fast, but there comes a point where you need actual speed in the lineup.
100%. Yeah.
You can't have somebody like Ty Cartier being the fastest guy on your team.
Yeah, 100%.
And I love Ty Cartier, but he can't be the fastest guy on the team. You need speed, and McTavish is not that. So I just I can't get a read on what this team is trying to do. This does seem a lot like throw shit at a wall and see what sticks. But trying to bring this back to positive, at least they're targeting guys with skill this offseason, and they're not targeting Barclay fucking Goodrow.
Yeah, I also think, look, the youth is another piece of it here, right? I mean, they know they need to get younger now. I don't think you need to just stock the roster with all players 25 and under. I think part of rebuilding a winning culture involves smart veteran signings that can sort of help move the ball forward, even if that means, and look, I threw this idea out there and I don't think people thought it was crazy. So I take that as a compliment, but Matt Zuccarello is an unrestricted free agent. Now I understand he may not want to come here for a variety of reasons. He is at the end of his career. He probably wants to try to win a Stanley Cup, but these types of reunions are pretty common in sports. And when done right, they can sort of help reset the culture and help shift the vibe a little bit. And, we have laughed over the years about vibes, on this podcast, and people have joked about the power of friendship across all sports in a variety of reasons. But there's a reason that's the case. It's because when you're talking about those things, usually the team is pretty good. And to me, like, Zuccarello has familiarity with the organization, with obviously he's close with Zibanejad. He would have overlapped with JT Miller for a few years. Henrik Lundqvist is still heavily involved with the Rangers. I saw a contract projection on The Athletic that was like 1 year, $5.8 million. The Rangers have tons of cap space. I'm like, why not give him a 2-year, $11 million deal? See if he's willing to come here and help be a mentor to Gabe Perreault. And just help reset the culture. He's a pros pro. He plays with an edge. He had 54 points in 59 games last year. There's a lot of ways, that you could talk yourself into that being a good idea. And, and again, look, Dave, that would be a move that, again, doesn't make you any younger, doesn't really make you faster. Zook is a good skater, but he's certainly not a burner. He's, his game is much more predicated on timing and savvy and, using his unique physical gifts in to create plays that other guys simply can't make. So, but like, I do agree with you, back to your original point, that you also just have to go find a couple of burners for this lineup. Like, every team has a good mix of all the traits that you need to be a winning team, right? You have to have some toughness. You have to have some grit. You have to have good goaltending. You have to have legitimate skill and finishers. You also need pure speed. You don't need a team of Carl Hagelin's, but you need at least a couple of Carl Hagelin's. And by the way, like, again, talk about just like a classic, like, glue guy type of player that won multiple Stanley Cups because he was a uniquely elite skater and knew how to leverage that to be like a very good, useful Swiss Army knife two-way type of player. So, like, I agree with you. Like, the speed should be a priority. That said, it should not prevent them from going after a guy like McTavish, because I think this is a real opportunity here, and it's the type that the Rangers need to jump at.
Yep. This is the type of rumor that, even if we're all wondering how Drury's going to overpay for McTavish, which is more PTSD than it is anything else, this is the type of rumor that we should be happy about, that Drury's targeting a young kid who is basically seeing himself drop in the lineup because Anaheim has Leo Carlson, because Anaheim has Cutter Gauthier, because Anaheim has who's the other guy there? Carlson, Gauthier, Beckett
Seneca. Yeah, it's Seneca. It's pronounced Seneca.
It's really okay. Whatever.
Pronounced Seneca. Yes. Yeah.
Interesting. I learned something new today. Anyway,
they have Troy Terry too.
Troy Terry too. Yeah, they have some of this skill to burn to get other players that they need. Like, they are losing all three of Gudas, Trouba, and Carlson. They're three right-handed defensemen, and I'm not counting Drew Hellison as a defenseman because he's not a real player.
Yeah,
he's not a real player. He played 60 games last year.
Right, but he's not. If you're a playoff team, though, he's not like a. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, so that's all they have, and Ian Moore, who's also a right-handed guy, but he's basically their Brendan Smith. He plays everywhere. So their only defenseman under contract right now is basically Jackson Lacombe, and they're probably going to re-sign Minchikov and Zellweger, but they're both lefties. They need right-handed defensemen, and McTavish is a luxury for them at $7 million. So I understand the hesitancy because he was healthy scratched, but he just slipped in the lineup, and there's very little he could have done about that. I mean, look at the guys who were beating him out. So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
wouldn't look too much into that. I would be very fearful of Drury overpaying, especially because we heard he was dangling the fifth for Bowen Byram. I just don't see Anaheim wanting the fifth overall pick. I see them wanting a Schneider and perhaps somebody like Adam Edstrom if they see him as a center. Noah Laba. I could see them more interested in that. I would still include Laba in this trade. I would do something like Schneider and Laba for McTavish. Schneider, Laba, and a third-round pick for McTavish and Zellweger. I would do something like that. There's a deal to be made.
Yeah.
And that doesn't involve an overpay.
Yeah. I think to me, what I'm focused on here is, you still have, assuming this deal, gets done and Trocheck's not in it, which it sounds like he isn't. You still have like a major asset that you can explore more trades with, right? So this is not, you're not shooting, this isn't your only bullet and you're firing the gun and that's it. You still have more bullets to fire here. Plus you've got so many draft picks. Like they have, I'm looking at it now. They have 8, they have 12, 11 picks in this draft. It's like, look, they should not make 11 picks. Like there's not enough room in the prospect system to work in 11 players. So they should be using those assets along with Trocheck, along with, potentially Schneider if he's not in this deal to continue building the roster and adding to the NHL roster. Because again, let's at least operate this way. As far as we know, this is still a retool. As far as we know, the Rangers, have a win now coach. They have an elite goalie. Like they are trying to be competitive next year. So what they can't do is run out the same lineup that closed the season last year on opening night this year, right? Like that would be unacceptable on all fronts. So they have to make changes. They have to be bold. And I think, going and getting McTavish, it would be in my mind, a bold enough move and the right type of move.
Yes, it may not work out. And I think we have to stress that. This may not work out, but this is the type of swing I'm okay with them taking. Again, cost aside, assuming it's not an overpay, this is the type of trade I am okay with. And this is also why, going to the Trocheck thing, because Trocheck and Buffalo have been connected, I am okay with that, assuming, the asking price at this point would probably be, the 20th and Peyton Krebs, essentially. Or I don't think they're going to get Consta Hellenius out of it.
Yeah, that would be the dream.
That would be the dream. I can't see Buffalo doing that. But if it's Krebs or even Ryan McLeod and the 20th pick, that's solid. You get another. First off, McLeod and Krebs are lightning fast. Those guys are 99th percentile speed, according to NHL Edge data. So that's where you get at least one piece for your speed. You get another first-round pick, which is another asset you can use. You can use 20 and 26 to go get more speed.
Yeah.
This is the type of stuff that Drury should be doing, and I'm okay with this. It may not work, but the process, the guys he's targeting, I'm comfortable with.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody really gives a shit what the hell I'm comfortable with because I'm just some guy on a microphone. But anyway, that's my take on it is you need the skill, you need the speed, and you're not going to get it all in one trade. So you need to, like you keep saying, evaluate the trade in a vacuum, but also take a step back and look at the completed product in August and see what happens and see what this roster looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's why, like, even, we'll see if this McTavish deal goes through. Like, whatever the trade cost might be, we still need to see what the rest of the offseason shakes out as. And that starts with the draft on Friday, right? So, assuming that this deal doesn't get done, the next big thing on the calendar is, of course, the draft. Dave, just real quick, and we probably will get a question about this anyway. We'll probably get several questions, but let's just do it in 5 minutes off the top. Who do you want them to take at 5, and who do you think they will take at 5?
So, assuming no other trades happen beforehand, because I do think trades will impact who they take. There's who I want them to take, and I've been very vocal about this. I want them to take Viggo Bjork. I think he'll be there. I think Buffalo moving to 4 means they're taking Chase Reed because they have no right-handed defenseman also.
Yep.
And I'm actually intrigued to see how that goes because apparently Vancouver is not taking Caleb Malhotra.
Well, how real is that too? Is that like, I do wonder if that's a smokescreen.
I could be, but I'm taking it at face value right now. I would not be surprised if they do. I would not be surprised if they don't. So, assuming Vancouver goes Malhotra, I see Buffalo taking Chase Reed, in which case I want Bjork. I know everybody, and then I think Drury will take Schmitz, the left-handed defenseman who's closest to NHL ready, which I think is an app. I like Schmitz as a player. I don't like the process of taking the closest to NHL ready player because the last time the Rangers did that, it was Elias Anderson.
Right. And so even though, look, and it's very possible, let's give, if that is what happens, let's give Schmitz every chance to succeed, and let's hope it works out. And I know you will, but because these things aren't necessarily a fait accompli. But yes, I do agree with you that this high in the draft, right? You finished last in the conference. Yes, the lottery balls didn't ping pong the right way for you, but you still have a premium draft pick, and these are important picks, right? If you keep the pick and you don't use it in a trade, then you should be taking swings for the highest upside possible. And so I agree with you. So you want Viggo Bjork. Obviously, he's an undersized center, but most of the reports that I've read about him are that the size shouldn't really be considered that much of a concern. He's played against men. He's played against bigger players with a lot of success. So, and look, the Rangers need the more of those types of players in the system, just high upside guys. How far away from the NHL is Bjork? Because again, it's clear that if they were to take Schmitz, that his NHL readiness would factor into the decision. Like, if Bjork is only a year away, like, could they potentially be swayed, I guess is my question.
So I want to be clear. When you say size with Bjork, he's 5'9". It's not that he lacks strength.
I understand. No, that's what I'm
saying. It's not for you. It's for everybody else listening. He's not small. He doesn't play small. He's just shorter. Right. I think Drury's 5'10", so this guy's only an inch shorter than Drury.
Yeah,
so
I know. It's so funny how he's been obsessed with size, and he's not a tall guy, but maybe there are some issues there.
This screams, we don't need to get into this screams overcompensating with the pickup truck with giant wheels. Bjork played 42 games in the SHL. 6 goals, 9 assists, 15 points, which puts him top 10 in scoring on his team.
Right. And how old?
He played with Anton Frundell. He's 17 years old.
Right. As a 17-year-old, he did that.
Yeah, and he just turned 18 in March.
Yep.
So he's one of the younger players in the draft. He played the entire season as a 17-year-old in Sweden's top league, which I would put it as the number 3 league. NHL, KHL, SHL.
Yes.
And I don't think there's much of a difference between the SHL and the KHL. I would want Bjork to get one more season in the SHL before coming over. Hopefully they learned the damn lesson that they did with Kakko.
Mm-hmm.
And just let him play one more year in the SHL. Even if you trade for McTavish, Zibanejad's mid-30s. Miller, I don't know how long he's going to be a center. He did not look good all last season, and I think his eventual home will be on the wing again.
Yep.
So you're going to want Bjork. You're going to want McTavish. Eventually, Zibanejad either shifts to wing or shifts down the lineup. But I think Bjork is one season away. Everybody seems to think Schmitz is ready to play now, but Will rightly said, you're probably better off giving him another year too. The only guys who are really ready to step into the NHL right now, guy singular, is probably Stenberg. I think McKenna needs another year at Penn State. Penn State, right?
Yes, he's at Penn State.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is, that's the thing about the NHL draft. It is different. It's closer to baseball in the sense that these guys do need at least one, but in most cases, multiple years of further development, whether that's in college or in the AHL, in the minor leagues. So, look, that's why I think we're also seeing, I think with the cap going up, I think with just the sort of like state of the league right now, there's definitely like a shifting in the attitude among like star players with like kind of requesting trades, right? Dylan Larkin, Brady Tkachuk, etc. There just does seem to be a little bit more movement, and there's a lot more appetite for dealing draft picks the way they are dealt, like in the NBA. Like teams deal draft picks all the time in the NBA because, unless you pick a guy in the top 3, there's not a great chance that you're going to get an impact player in the draft anyway. So why not, accrue those and use them to get something that's a little bit more of a sure thing. Look, I think if the Rangers go with Schmitz, or if they go with Carrolls, or even if they go with Verhoff, like I'm not going to freak out, because I think, as I just said, there really are no sure things in this draft. And honestly, the last time the Rangers were drafting in a position where they were going to get a sure thing, it didn't really work out with Kakko and then Lafreniere. I mean, Lafreniere is a good player, and I think he's got room to grow, but he's not Sidney Crosby, which some people thought he would be, right? So I will, again, reserve judgment and kind of like let the process play out. But I think, to your point, I would like them to take a bigger swing at that pick, as opposed to do the safe thing, which would be to go with Schmitz or Carrolls or Verhoff, and then, then go best player available at 26 and get a center, right? Get best center available. Cause like, I think that just the pickings get slim. And then when you get down into the 20s and beyond in the NHL draft, it's much more of a dart throw. And, you just, again, you're not getting a premium prospect at that point. You're hoping that guy turns into something legitimate. So you got to make the most of 5th overall if and when you make that pick.
Based off of what we're hearing today, the ideal scenario, at least to me, is you go and you trade Schneider, and let's just Schneider in the 26th for McTavish. You do that. You use the 5th overall pick, you get Bjork. You go and you trade Trocheck to Buffalo for Krebs and the 27th, or the 20th, sorry. The 20th and the... Yeah, Buffalo's not giving up the 4th. So the 20th and Krebs for Trocheck. And you go and use that 20th overall pick on left defenseman Ryan Lynn. Now you're walking out of this with 2 under 25-year-old centers. You got Krebs, who's 25 now and could be your 4C next year as a speedy 4C. And you got one of the best left-handed defensemen in the draft at 20. And maybe use, one of the 75 third-round picks you got to move up to ensure you get Lynn. I don't think you draft a defenseman in the top 5. And Will brought up a very good point when he wrote how to use a top 5 pick. Basically, defensemen are crapshoots. I think it was 25% of defensemen taken in the top 10 in the last decade or so have hit as top pairing defensemen, and the rest have been basically bottom pairing or a second pairing. Whereas forwards hit at like a 60% rate to be top line forwards. You got to use the numbers on this and just take the damn forward, even if he's 5'9".
Yep.
He's 18 years old. He may go through a growth spurt.
I was going to say he could still grow. That's the other thing about Bjork. So yeah, very interesting. Obviously, that'll all play out on Friday and throughout the weekend with the NHL draft. Let's do some questions.
All right. So, do you want to read them or you want me to?
No, you read them. I don't have them pulled up.
All right. So, nothing on Blue Sky. So, we're going to start with the post on the site, starting with NYC Crash. 2 questions. First, what do you think this team will really look like next season?
It'll probably look too similar to last season's team, and that will be frustrating and somewhat depressing. What I
Yeah.
want to see, and I'll be brief, is I just want to see a team that, and I want the Rangers to also target players that care, that want to be here. I just think there's been so much nonsense and so much distraction and so much, frankly, like listless, kind of like careless hockey over the last couple of years that, look, the last time we saw it look like that, it was the dark ages. Do I think we're quite there yet? No, but we're certainly close to it. Look, you can go a long way in the NHL with 18 skaters that are really just give a shit and try really hard every night. And if you don't believe that, like look at some of like the late Tom Rennie years into the early John Tortorella years. Like those were not talented teams. And by 2011, 2012, the Rangers were in the conference final as favorites and like probably should have beaten the Devils. And they were not loaded with skill. Now I'm not saying the Rangers are going to reach those heights next season, but my point is like, just give me a team that gives a shit. Give me a team that plays really, really hard every night, and give me a team that's in contention with 3 weeks left in the season, right? 2 points out of a playoff spot with 10 games left, and let's see where it lands. That's what I would like it to look like. I'm afraid it's going to look just a little too similar to last year. That, look, until further notice, no trades have been made. I'm worried Schneider's still going to be here. I'm worried Trocheck's still going to be here. I'm worried we're going to still see way too much pouty JT Miller. I'm worried we're going to see way too much pouty Igor Shesterkin. I love him, but he's pouty. And that's my concern.
So the second part is, what moves do you think are going to be made?
I mean,
if you're saying they're running it back, that means none.
I don't think they're going to fully run it back, but I think like there's at least a decent chance that one of Schneider or Trocheck is not traded, right? So let's put that there. It's maybe only one of those guys is moved, and other than that, they're just kind of like running it back with most of what we saw at the end of last year.
So I'm going to take a bolder stance. I think we're going to see both Trocheck and Schneider traded. I think Brett Berard is going to get traded. I think Adam Edstrom is going to get traded. Though I think Edstrom and Berard are more to recoup draft capital. And I think Schneider and Trocheck are the guys that are going to bring in assets. I can see Schneider and Trocheck both going to Buffalo. I can see what we've been talking about with Schneider going to Anaheim for McTavish. I can see a Trocheck Jordan Spence swap in Ottawa. I can see Trocheck going to Montreal, assuming Jeff Gordon allows a deal with the Rangers. There's a lot I can see happening, but what I do think this team is going to look like next season is more competitive, but not a good team. So we're not going to be looking at a team that just doesn't care. Like JL and I said on the last pod, there were some legitimate locker room issues that had to be addressed. They were all self-inflicted by Drury, mind you. There were legitimate locker room issues that Drury finally got rid of the last piece with Panarin. And I think that alone raises the give a shit meter. I think we'll see a better effort. I don't think we're going to see more than a 20th best team in the NHL.
Yeah.
And the moves, I think we kind of covered it at this point. I would be absolutely stunned if one of Schneider and Trocheck are still on the Rangers. Schneider or Trocheck.
Okay. All right.
All right.
We'll see.
Next one from Shesty. I personally think Drury will turn a page this year. Just have a feeling he will get on the right track. Obviously can't fix all of his mistakes. Also, I wouldn't just trade Trocheck for the best offer last year or right now just to get it done. That's fair. If nothing is worth it, I would wait one more trade deadline. Hopefully something mustards up. I've never heard that phrase before. Interesting. I wonder what it would take to get Carolina's young defenseman Nikishin. So that's more of the question.
Yeah.
A
Well,
lot of
apparently he's not.
optimism, but what would Alexander Nikishin cost, basically?
Yeah. Love the optimism. I will not be having an original thought here because Nikishin or Nikishin, I don't know how you say it. He came up earlier, and I think someone said like, I don't want to get into the business of dealing with trading with Carolina for defensemen that they're willingly putting on the block. That obviously did not work out great with Keandre Miller and Scott Morrow so far. Maybe Scott Morrow turns a corner. If in the spirit of the question, we're being optimistic, let's give Morrow a chance next year. But I don't want to go down that road. I really don't want to trade with Carolina. I'll just say that. And what would he cost? I don't, probably similar to what Scott Morrow cost. Like, right?
Could you imagine?
Pick? Yeah.
Could you imagine Braden Schneider and a first round pick, or just something like Braden Schneider and Nikishin basically flipping teams, and then Schneider goes and does what Miller is doing now? Could you imagine?
Yeah, well, I can, because Carolina turns everybody into a decent
that's true.
Into a decent player. Like, everybody's metrics look decent on Carolina, but look, I mean, Keandre Miller played his ass off in the playoffs, especially in the Stanley Cup final. So good for him. He found a situation that works for him. Brendan Moore's a hell of a coach. He was on a hell of a team that won the cup. Braden Schneider does not have the physical gifts, and I frankly don't think he is even as smart a hockey player as Keandre Miller. Like,
yeah, I agree with you there.
As good as Schneider, like, he seems like a genuinely good guy, but like, he's like maybe the dumbest hockey player in the league. Like, he is. I watch him sometimes and I'm like, man, this guy has no idea what he's doing. Like, if you do one of those things, like, go back, watch a game from last year and just watch him. Just don't watch the puck. Don't watch anybody else. Just watch him. It is ugly and scary and bad. And for as many loud mistakes as Keandre Miller made, he was never that consistently lost on the ice as Braden Schneider has been for the better part of the last 2-3 seasons.
I want to float something to you. Now, this is wild because I can't ignore the rumors that the Rangers were asking for goalies at the trade deadline. I can't ignore that. So, I wonder, if you go to Carolina and you say, we'll give you Shesterkin for goalie Brandon Bussy, Charlie Serrato, and Nikishin.
So you're trading. You're trading Shesterkin.
I'm trading Shesterkin. This is just all. This is only because I can't ignore those rumors, and this is just a wild what if. And then I'm assuming just for cap purposes, you have to take Cook and Niemi's contract just to make it work.
Right.
You're getting Serrato, who's a solid center prospect with speed. You're getting Nikishin, who I understand the concerns of trading with Carolina for defensemen they're willingly putting on the block, but I don't know if Nikishin would be the same as Morrow, because Nikishin was in the lineup for the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I know that.
He played 17 playoff games. Like, he was there, and he looked good too, from what I've seen. And he also put up 11 goals, 22 assists, 33 points this season. So I don't think he's Morrow in that regard. And yeah, I understand trading Shesterkin into the division is horrible, but that's a lot of talent to get. I don't know. It's tough. Kishin was in the lineup for the Carolina Hurricanes for 17 playoff games. I think that's all of their games, actually, now that I think about it.
Yes. Yeah.
He only had 1 assist in those games, and his ice time got cut to 1450. But in the regular season, 81 games, 11 goals, 33 points, playing 18 minutes a night.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is a Scott Morrow situation. I think this is a leveraging one guy with trade value to probably address the goalie position. So that's why I floated the Shesterkin thing, because, yeah, you're trading him in division, and obviously this isn't going to happen. But I'm just intrigued by that, because it's just something I'm looking at their cap wages page now, and I just thought of.
Yeah, I mean, look, to me, like, if you're trading you or Shesterkin, it has to be for a star NHL player and not a like the fourth best defenseman on the Hurricanes. So yeah, that's I mean, true. Look, it's I mean, that's just such a I wouldn't care trading him in the division if that's it, but if you'd have to get a star. You have to get a legitimate star player. And like Carolina with him in goal, like they'd probably win 5 cups in a row. That scares the hell out of me. I would not want any part of that.
I wouldn't want Shesterkin in anywhere near the Eastern Conference, but it was just something that was wild that I was thinking of as we were talking this out.
That is wild. All right, let's do the next question.
Not much of a question, more of a rant from NFTRH. You're going to have to tell us what that means at some point. Trocheck needs to be traded or else we fail this offseason. I agree. I like the guy a lot as a player, but it's the right move and you have to do it right now. Assuming this happens, it is good that Drury is motionless right now. He's not biting on bad trades that GMs are likely dangling his way due to history. But he does have to find an off-ramp with Trocheck. Not so much a question as more of a statement. I 1,000% agree.
Yeah. I do too.
Yep. We've talked Trocheck a lot, so I'm not sure if there's much else we can add here. So I'm going to go to the next one. 2 line passes. What do you think about the rumors that Brett Berard wants out of New York?
I saw that he has not formally requested a trade. I wouldn't read too much into it, even if he does. Some guys just want a fresh start. He will have been through 2 NHL head coaches, 3 or 4 minor league head coaches. Like, he just might want a little more stability, and that's okay. I would not be broken up. He seems like a good kid. He was pretty decent in, basically I don't begrudge Brett Berard wanting a fresh start. He's been through at least 2 NHL head coaches, at least 3 minor league coaches, I think, at this point. And he might just want a little bit more stability, and that's okay. I think I don't think it's, and look, he was good a couple of years ago in, somewhat limited action, especially after the season got out of hand. Last year, he wasn't good. He did not earn a spot, and he didn't play well enough to warrant staying up at the NHL level. So it's okay. Like, sometimes these things don't work out, and you move on and hopefully, and you move on and you wish him all the best. Right. So that's kind of my thought on Berard.
He's also no longer waivers exempt. So you got to move him now. If you don't see him making the team next year, now you have to move him, because he will get claimed off waiver. So you got to move him. And even if he didn't request it, you have to trade him, because he's a negative asset at this point, not on the ice, just in the organization, because you will lose him on waivers. So either he's Libor Hayek, or you recoup a 4th round pick for him or a 5th round pick for him. You get something. Get it for next year's draft.
Yeah, it's a great point.
So, moving on to the next. Any centers from Blue Shirts, any centers worth drafting besides Caleb Malhotra? Obviously, Viggo Bjork.
Yeah.
We covered that.
You feel good about Viggo Bjork. And then, I know Tynan Lawrence's stock has fallen. But, in some ways, obviously there's more of them and it's not as pivotal, but you got to somewhat treat it like the quarterback position for an NFL team that doesn't have one. Even if you're not drafting first overall and have a shot at the top guy, do your due diligence and try to find some guys that you think can, potentially pop. I mean, look, I always come back to Patrice Bergeron was a second round pick. And I don't know if there was any special circumstances there or reasons that he fell into the second round, or if it was just he was kind of seen as like an unremarkable run of the mill prospect and he turned into be one of the all-time great two-way players, right? So I think they have to draft multiple centers. I don't have any specific names off the top of my head, but Dave, you might.
So there's Max Dagenet, who is drawing interest. So I'm going to give a counterpoint to your Tynan Lawrence statement that his stock has fallen. I don't. What Hope and Will have been saying is that Lawrence and Malhotra essentially have the same skill sets and ceilings. It's just Malhotra popped off recently when Lawrence struggled.
Right.
And that's very recency bias. So listen, if Lawrence is there at the 20s because the stock has fallen that much, you have to take him because he's another solid ceiling guy. His ceiling is probably a second line center. But like you said, we have to start taking centers because right now the centers in the Rangers farm system, Aiden Thompson, who I think was the guy from Aiden Thompson was not the Brennan Othman trade. I forgot who they got Thompson for.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah. Hold on, let's see if they have it. Derek Pouliot. Why would Chicago give up a young center for Derek Pouliot? That's a dumb fucking trade.
Yeah.
That's just horrible. So that's one. That's probably their best center right now. You got Bryce McConnell Barker, who can't stay healthy. And you got Carey Terrence, who is a fourth line center if the Rangers are lucky.
Maybe,
and then you got Dylan Rubrick, who everybody loves because he put up 20 goals in 72 games in 24-25, but he dropped to 11 this past season. And there's a reason why he was a fifth-round pick. So the Rangers need centers. They can't keep doing this whole song and dance with wingers and defensemen. At some point, they need centers. And as much as I like best player available, you got to start taking these guys. So if Lawrence falls, fine, great. You got to take a center, one of the centers in the fifth pick. You got to take another one if you still pick in the first round of the 20s. You got to start stockpiling centers. Teams win with depth down the middle. And you can't keep going these cautious, safe, high floor, low ceiling centers.
Yeah.
You need a high ceiling center at some point, and you need to hit on it.
Absolutely.
All right. Next one. Two-part question from producer JL Praise account. First question. That Alex Tuck contract is fucking nuts, right?
Yes. I mean, it's not because it's what everybody expected it to be, but I'm sure everybody else is too. I'm very glad that it was not the Rangers who handed out that contract.
Yes. Firmly agree with you. If the Rangers handed out that contract, I would have been annoyed, to put it lightly. Yeah. And the second question you're going to laugh at, are there any, this is not something I can answer. So are there any good Ranger books or other media you can recommend? And the reason is my VHS tape of the 1994 playoffs is getting worn out. Producer JL, Dave can tell you what a VHS tape is.
Yep.
I can't answer that last one because I just don't have the time right now to really do anything.
Well, what I will say is YouTube is your friend. There's a ton of great, any game you want to watch, full game highlights. The 1994 Stanley Cup video is also on YouTube if you search it. Um, there's a book, I haven't read it, but I gave it to my dad as a Christmas or birthday gift years ago about the 70s teams called We Did Everything But Win. And I've actually had this thought in my head that they probably need to write a volume 2 of that book about about the 2010s Rangers teams. I think there were so many similarities, honestly, from the stories my dad has told me and what I know about, the Gilbert, Rattel, Hadfield, Jacquemin, like those teams that, made it to a couple of conference finals, one Stanley Cup final. That team was pretty much broken up, but they did make the cup final again in 79. So, throughout the 70s, the Rangers were one of the premier teams in the league, got close, couldn't close the deal. Similarly, again, I always remind people that as bleak as it seems, this team not that long ago was in 5 conference finals and a Stanley Cup final over the course of 12 seasons. They won more playoff series and games than anybody but the Chicago Blackhawks at one point. So a lot of winning, a lot of great memories. But yeah, so if you want to go back in time and do a little bit of a historical read, I think the book is called We Did Everything But Win. But I just go on YouTube if I'm getting nostalgic and want to watch old Ranger stuff.
There's a video on YouTube, now that you said that, that has the Rangers' biggest goals from basically 2012 through 2015, ending
Mm-hmm.
obviously with the step-on goal. I love that video. There's another one with the recent 2020 early 2020s run as well that doesn't have the same hype because other than 24, I never thought the 22 team was that team that could make that run. They just surprised
Yeah.
us, and the other teams were meh. But that 24 team I thought could do it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like the 15 team if Zuccarello's healthy.
Yeah, I agree.
I
I think that
I
those
think
are
those
very
two teams have a
similar
lot in
teams.
common.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, no, like I said, YouTube is your friend when it comes to nostalgic video content. There really is no like definitive like Ranger like documentary. Like there's obviously some like Mark Messier stuff. The Game 7 series that's I believe it's on Amazon Prime, and that was sort of like the basis for like the Game 7 brand, and obviously that's like the Rangers jersey patch now. That series is decent. Obviously they profile, one of the ones they highlight is Game 7 versus Vancouver in 94. Um, and then the rest of them are, there's a couple of NBA ones. There's an Oilers Game 7, Yankees Red Sox from 2003 with the Aaron Boone home run. So yeah, that's a cool series, but not Ranger specific. And that's, I believe, on Amazon Prime. But yeah, go to YouTube.
Yep. All right. Next question from Nikki70. Who would you basically rank these players in terms of least to most wanted and why? And now obviously we're skipping McKenna Stenberg. So least to most wanted at 5th overall: Malhotra, Carols, Reed, Verhoff, Bjork, and Smits.
Okay. I guess I'll go Verhoff, Schmitz, Carols, Reed, Bjork, Malhotra, or Malhotra, Bjork. Right?
I'm similar. Yeah, I'm similar to you. I would put Carols last
Mm-hmm.
because I don't like that quote he had where he's
Yes.
basically
Oh, I
trying to
forgot
get
about
him.
that. Yeah. Thank you for
Yeah.
bringing that up. True.
So he's last. Verhov is next, not because I think Verhov is going to be a bad player. I just think he's not what the Rangers need right now. They
Mm-hmm.
need more skill and more speed. And as much as Verhov is a solid prospect, he doesn't have the skill or the speed. So he's second least. Smits would be third least. But I'd be fine with Smits, but I don't like drafting for NHL readiness. I like drafting for ceiling.
Right.
Then Malhotra, I think his name brand is carrying over more than his ceiling. then Reed as my number 2 I want, and then
Right.
I've been very consistent. I want Bjork. I want Bjork on this team, but if they can't get Bjork, I'm okay with Reed. Ceiling over anything else. Start learning from the Knicks and get as much fucking talent on this team as you possibly fucking can, because I'm sick and tired of this team drafting for floor and not for ceiling.
Yep. Agreed.
That was actually the last question.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've been recording for about an hour and 15 minutes.
Yes, we have. And did we have another audio issue?
Fortunate, because I was hoping we could maybe have a little bit of a, news breaking and having a little bit of a party. Also, this also puts us in position, Dave, for our usual song and dance of the podcast being irrelevant moments after we release it.
Yes, it will be.
But we'll see. We'll see. So, no, look, the NHL draft is on Friday. It is a very consequential weekend coming up for the Rangers. So, we will definitely recap it all next week. There'll be plenty of coverage on the blog. Obviously, stay tuned into what Hope and Will have been putting out. Some great, kind of draft insight on the blog. Dave, I know you've been joking about this. I think you have a family engagement that might be happening this weekend, and that's when we should bank on the Trocheck trade happening, or the McTavish trade happening, I would guess.
Yeah, I have my nephew's bar mitzvah on Saturday. It's because it starts at 2, but because we're family, we have to get there at 1. So basically, I will be able to be around for the second round and maybe one pick of the third, but that's it. And that's when I expect all the trades to happen. So Saturday, roughly 2:00, when I am nowhere near my phone, I'm not going to have my laptop with me. That's when everything will break.
Yes. We're looking forward to that.
Yeah, I can't wait to look at my phone at 5, 6 o'clock and see 30 text messages from you guys.
Yes, that will definitely happen.
Yeah.
No, if obviously as news breaks, stay tuned to the blog. We'll do another pod next week and recap it all. Big draft coming up for the Rangers. So thanks everyone for listening, and we will talk to you next week.